Well, NFL running back Ray Rice successfully fighting his indefinite suspension. This coming after months of fallout over a controversial video where Rice was seen hitting his then fiancée in an elevator. But after weeks of appeals and arbitration, Rice is free to sign with another team. And now we're learning that it is because the acting judge didn't buy the league commissioner's claim that the events in the elevator seemed ambiguous, and that was a quote. And the real question, though, why was it overturned, and who really messed up? Joining us now to discuss is defense attorney David Wall and Robert Bianchi. He's a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and trial attorney. Thank you both for joining us, first of all.
Thank you, Heather.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this federal judge, Barbara Jones, amongst other things, she said that the only reason this was deemed an abuse of discretion is because Goodell failed miserably. So the abuse of discretion, I want to talk about that first of all. David, explain what that is.
Well, in the initial hearing, of course, Ray Rice testified, he says, as to exactly what happened. At that point, if you recall, they had the video from outside the elevator when Ray Rice was simply dragging his wife around. Well, what happened was later on we find out that there's more video because TMZ actually made one phone call and got the video inside the elevator, the infamous video where he actually knocked his wife out with a left hook. Well, Roger Goodell said, you know something, Ray Rice didn't testify as to what happened in that initial hearing, so instead of the 2-game suspension, we're going to give him an indefinite suspension because this video is so horrible that we can't possibly let it go with simply 2 games. Well, the judge said, you know what? I reviewed the transcript of the hearing, and he did testify. He said he hit his wife and knocked her out. So you had what you needed in that hearing, and so increasing the penalty after which there was no new evidence was simply an abuse of discretion. A very common finding for appeals judges to change sentences, and that's what happened.
Yeah, an abuse of discretion on the part of the NFL, but not talking about abuse or domestic violence. And let's take a look at this full screen from his now wife, Janae Rice. She says, the video didn't make me rethink our relationship, but I did want more of an explanation from him. I asked him why he left me on the floor like that. I asked him how he felt when he saw that I was unconscious. He told me he was in shock. I asked him what happened when he got out of the elevator. He told me he was terrified because security was there. I asked him how he felt seeing me like that. He said he was thinking, what did I just do? I didn't watch the video again. So, David, your response to that and how the judge is able to split these two issues.
I'm going to defer to my co-counsel here.
Yes, Bianchi, I'm sorry. I have 2 Davids I'm dealing with. Yes.
Yes, Heather, what's happening here is that the judge splits the decision very easily. One is an issue of domestic violence, and I thought something that was very, very interesting in what the judge had written in the opinion, specifically that it was clear that the league was not taking seriously the issue of domestic violence. That is a wholly and completely separate and different thing than what David just originally stated, which I agree with completely. That we have rules of law, we have standards, we have hearings, and we make decisions based upon these facts and law. And just because, as the commissioner noted, that people in the court of public opinion were disappointed about that decision does not, from a legal standpoint, bring us to a place where we reconsider the decision. That would be an anathema to what we would consider as far as due process is concerned. So there are 2 separate things that are going on here. The judge is saying that you should take domestic violence more seriously, and in fact, the commissioner did that. I think the commissioner was really between a rock and a hard place here because he was trying to appease both a new codified policy that would address this more seriously, and he did a very good job at doing that. But when the public outcry was there, he's concerned about the overall well-being of the NFL and made a decision at that point that he needed to go back at Ray Rice to give a greater sentence, and that's where the mistake was made.
Yeah, and then finally, I want to get both your responses to this, though. What about that outcry from the public, and has this become something that's being led by these decisions that are being made? David?
Well, both Roger Goodell and Ray Rice are frankly in a world of hurt. Roger Goodell because he has lost all credibility because it comes off as though he's done this in a way to save his rear end as a sort of a PR move. The second sentence of the basically an indefinite suspension. And Ray Rice, of course, now he is free to sign with a new team. But the reality is, from a public relations standpoint, any team that signs him, at least this year, would be doing themselves a tremendous disservice. I can't even imagine without a long-term domestic violence counseling class and a favorable report from a psychologist, psychiatrist, that he would be accepted back into the NFL. But if he does all that,
Yeah.
look to next year, he'll probably be signed by a new team.
Robert, final word from you.
Hey, listen, I think that one of the things that also has to take away from this, in addition to what David said, because I agree completely, is that like in every other area of the law and every other business, we have codified policies about domestic violence, treatment, attempts to be able to determine what the punishments will be, but we also need to do something else that's different here. In our society, we are getting more and more to a point where the rule of law is being abandoned for the rule of public opinion. And I find this to be very dangerous in this case and many other cases. And I would just ask, as a former prosecutor, a person who's in court trying cases all the time, can we at least start getting recordings of these things so that we don't have to go into the he said, she said, and what was testified to or not testified to? I don't understand what the ambivalence about having a full and complete record and set of facts so that we can judge these things appropriately.
Very, very good
Absolutely.
point.
It should be
And perhaps we
televised.
wouldn't
It
be
should be
here.
televised.
All right, David Wall
Agreed.
and Robert Bianchi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.